explosiveness, his ability to catch the ball in the backfield. He still had, over 350 yards. So we had gotten very dependent upon him. And, I think once you play Cody in Star Valley, typically year in and year out, the teams that are really good, and you can put Lander in that conversation this year, the teams that are really good are the ones who stop the run the best. And so we knew coming into this game that we were going to have to throw. Now, some of the stuff Eric Smith did the other night was going to be what Hunter was going to do. We were going to try and throw him the ball more than we had all year just to get outside the box to be able to attack him. Anytime you lose your starting quarterback, we have a fairly complex offense for a high school level offense, and just the communication piece. We practiced all week trying to get Cameron we practiced every practice like a game, like he would get the play, he'd have to go relay it, because those things maybe you take for granted that Blake just could do in his sleep being the starter for 2 years. And Cameron did a great job of picking that up. And then Braden Martin, first time we played Cody, we gave up 428 yards on the ground, which that has to be a record in the worst way for any of the teams I've coached over the years. So you worry about, now you take, one of our top tacklers out of the mix. Cameron Vincent is now playing quarterback and middle linebacker. How's he going to be able to hold up throughout the whole game? How it impacted our special teams. We played more young kids on special teams the other night who did a good job. When you look at Camden Heil coming to kick, you kick an extra point in the state semifinal and you hadn't really kicked all year.
I thought that was huge.
Time. Yeah, those are things that you take for granted that you have. And he kicked a touchback, which we didn't know if that would happen. And so I thought it was awesome that the way that some of the guys stepped up. But it doesn't just impact those positions that maybe the public sees. It impacts your special teams. It impacts the operation of how you run things. I think sometimes the public or just the casual fan just thinks you can just plug and play people in football, and it's probably the hardest sport to do that just because there's so much going on, especially when you're playing Cody, who's so very well coached, that you're going to have to show them things that they haven't seen to be able to have a chance to do it. And so maybe it just happened so fast that we just didn't even have time to really think about it, just put our head down and get to work, but we did a good job.
Talk about the operation for that week. Your kids go down against Green River, right? Mm-hmm. And, you're racking your heads with your coaches, and then what does that look like to get guys prepared?
So typically, we play the game Friday night. We review the game tape from, I don't sleep well. I don't know how you are, but I don't sleep very well at night after games. And so we watch the tape a little bit, but most of the effort got put into Cody. I try to give the coaches most of Saturday off, even though I think they're watching film. But you're in early Sunday morning, 7 a.m., grinding, trying to figure out a way. For us that particular week, we knew Hunter was out. We knew Braden was out. Blake was up in the air.
Okay.
But we were going to play Cameron in some capacity, some way for that game, just to give him something they hadn't seen. But
was he your backup all year?
He was our backup all year.
Okay.
And we had used him on some trick plays and things like that. But we knew he could really throw the football. It was just going to be, how do we get him into a game without him playing a ton and be able to smoothly run the operation? So, truth be told, we were going to use him. So some of it wasn't as big a deal in terms of that we were planning to use him anyway. But then when we found out Sunday night we were possibly not going to have Blake, we kind of had to just go full steam ahead with Cameron and say if we get him back, we get him back. But, it's a lot of film study, but I think one thing when you watch film, and I think one thing that was smart for coaches, like you may be watching and preparing for Lander, for example, but you see Cody playing a certain coverage or doing something. I encourage all coaches, I don't know, I'm telling my opponents this, but for young people, I always try and just have a notepad or something next to me for every opponent that I have of like, okay, they played this against Lander, I noticed this. So then when you go back and you look at your notes, you're not like just feel like you're starting fresh every single time, which helps, and I think that sometimes those little notes, that you can make along the way with the season helps when you get to your Sunday prep and you've really only got 24 hours to put a plan together.
I remember John Scott had binders for every single team in the state, and he would just add to it as the year goes on.
That's similar to what we do. I have a file folder, but I know John, good dude, good friend. I know that I could see him having binders. I'd tease him. I'd say most of us probably put that on our computer, John. But
heck no. No.
he loves the old pen and paper, man.
Yep.
I agree. So
then we walk into the office and middle of December and the depth chart's already up there for the next season,
Yeah, it's wild how and I think like you guys remember, right, when Scotty Scheffler, when he talked about, we work so hard for these moments, and whoever wins the game on Friday, or Saturday for the 10 teams remaining, like you have these moments, right? And you may enjoy it through the weekend, and you get the fire truck ride when you get back to town, or for the teams who lose, it's still a great season, but really you work so hard for these small moments. I think that's what he said. And then we're on to the next thing, right? And I think that's the way coaches are kind of wired. Like I'd be lying if I said, at least in these first 3 days, that I haven't had conversations with kids about maybe what their roles will be next year, what would they need to do, whether they need to put on weight. All of those things are, we're just, this, Stu, we're trained to look forward, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a bad thing we do. Maybe we don't take enough time as coaches to celebrate the victories, and then, try and figure out how do we not experience the defeats as well. So, I think that, it's wild. Now we're not sitting there like game planning this week or anything like that, but
big
you're
picture.
definitely thinking moving forward always. So.
Yeah. Talk maybe just a little bit about your team. Was there a particular moment, or, thinking back, you talked about, you're just early, preseason workouts, that kind of thing, where you felt like, this group could take turn the corner, or, when did they really start taking ownership of this?
I thought our summer workouts were as good as they've been. But I think more than anything is that what Bill Parcells says it right, like confidence is demonstrated ability. And I think for us to win a playoff game last year against a really good PAL team, where we had to do it and come from behind fashion, and a good majority of those kids were coming back, I think the confidence to make a good run for our guys was always there. It was just about taking some of those next steps. And so I think the victory at Douglas, where we won in a 28-0 shutout, Douglas has dominated Riverton for years, and
it was like 24 in a row or something like that.
It was like 17 of 18 or something. First win down there since like 2012. It has just not gone well. And my first 2 years here, those were games where we went into them and felt like we had a chance, but we ultimately just, we lost 2 one-score games. And I think that win was big for our kids' confidence. But then it was trying to stay up. I mean, we knew what kind of battle Lander was going to be, and we knew that the Lander kids, that this particular group of theirs was a confident bunch, and you could see early in the season how they were, beating people and scoring a lot of points, and you knew the size and the physicality they had, and I think you could argue in our conference this year, I think the Hollingshead kid probably improved as much as anybody I saw on the field for any team in the 3A East. So they weren't so one-dimensional anymore, and so we knew that we had our hands full. And that was a game where it could have gone either way, and we were lucky. I think had that game gone a little longer, who knows who wins the game? You know what I mean?
Right.
It was one of those where they had all the momentum and really outplayed us in the fourth quarter. So I think once we won that game, the hard part for coaching is you saw who was left on the schedule, Torrington and Rollins. Torrington's always going to give you a tussle, and Rollins has struggled is keeping our guys up here. And I think that's the hardest part in coaching is how do we stay up here? And we did not play our best. those last 3 games, including the playoff game.
Yeah,
But,
I saw your comments about that, Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't perfect.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part, right, of all levels of sports is how do we get people to not be comfortable and treat every week the same. And, that's what I marvel at with Sheridan, right? Like, it just seems like they just get their guys to just be almost like robots. Like, they really buy into that process week in, week out. Every game is a life of its own. And what happened in the past doesn't matter. And in the future, we can't control it. So, just play this game. And I think the evolution of programs, hopefully we can get to that point someday.
Yeah, I think most people around the state, know your reputation, as far as, what you did at Torrington, what you did at Rock Springs, and now in Riverton. Would you expand on maybe what you think, you and your program does differently or gets right? I don't want to give any competitive advantages here in the future, but I think people would love to see that.
Stu, to be truthful with you, it's just very simple. It's working hard and staying consistent in the work ethic. I think that one thing that we do well, or what we've gotten better at over the years, is we really try not to focus on the results as much as the process. I'm a big Nick Saban guy. I think the guy is, now granted, he got to recruit really, really good players, when you get to be really good. But I think a lot of what he says is true, is that most of the games are won, in the preparation leading up to them. That confidence you get from working hard. Like, people know when they cut corners, right? And it doesn't matter what job you're in. Like, the best teachers in the building, the guy who does the best down selling cars, who sells the most cars at the dealership, maybe the auto mechanic who's the most reliable. It's just consistency. It's people who are willing to day in, day out show up and work and do their absolute best. And I think that's one thing we do require of our players, is that consistency and to understand the bigger picture of it all. I think when we played, we did what the coaches said because that's what we just did, right?
Yeah.
Like, run through a wall, okay, I'll do that, coach. I don't think this generation operates that way. I think they have to know what is the sport giving to them. Well, some of the things we talk about is whether you play a second on this team or you don't, you're going to be a better person for it, because in the long run, we're giving you the skills to be successful in life. And so we put a much bigger emphasis on not so much what we're doing to try and win these games. I mean, we do that, but it's more about what is this experience going to do that puts you ahead of other people as an employee, as a father, as a husband, and that day in, day out grind and grit. We do a lot of book studies, leadership training, and we're not perfect at it by any means, but I do think there's been growth that way. And I've gotten more into that over the years because I think, like I said, these little moments, the season is over. What is Blake Gattenbein and Hunter Salzgaver and Caden Liebert going to take from this experience to make them better people in the long run? I think that as coaches has got to be kind of what we emphasize, because this is a instant gratification generation. I gotta see the fruits of my labor right now, and I think that's our biggest challenge as coaches, is that they're not going to want to be looking at that. So I think you got to talk about those things where we know what it was like when I played for Kevin McLeod, who was an old Riverton Wolverine, or Tag Lane and those guys. I knew what was going to happen, but I think this generation has to see it quicker. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's maybe talk a little bit about your journey. You've brought up some coaches. What experiences, do you think have really shaped you into the coach you are today?
Well, a couple. I mean, I've had the extreme fortune of being able to play and work for some of the best. I mean, a couple I mentioned. I thought there's a lot of people a coach a lot of guys don't know about, Kevin McLeod. He only coached 4 years at Cheyenne Central, but I don't know if you know him or not,
I don't.
Stu, but he coached with Jim Brandenburg at Wyoming. And the dude just had the ability to be really hard on us. He was my high school basketball coach. Be really hard on us, but at the same time, we knew that he loved us, and he wasn't afraid to be emotional and vulnerable. Where sometimes I think in sports we see the coach as always the big bad tough guy, and they don't have that human side. And he was amazing at that, and really just a great coach. Brick Sigelski. I mean, these are two guys I still fish with to these days.
Oh, nice.
So that'll show you what kind of impact you have.
Absolutely.
My high school coach in football was just a good dude who always, I think what I took from him is at the end of the day, it was a game and it was always fun. And he found a way to always treat us well, regardless of the outcome. Tag Lane, this is one of the most accomplished baseball coaches in the state. He got Post 6 built to where it was. He's down in Fort Collins now. Rebuilt that program up to where they're a perennial contender.
Wow.
Down in Colorado. And he was a terrific basketball coach.
Yeah, I coached against him.
Yeah, you guys know. I think that his toughness and attention to detail, and he was always just had a mind for the game. He was really good. But I think a guy who probably had a huge impact on me was the guys I worked with at Carroll College in terms of football was Mike Van Diest, one of the best small school coaches. One thing I got from Coach was he always found a way to have the innate ability to take a kid who played like outside linebacker and make him an inside backer, or an inside backer and make him a D-line. He always saw what kids could do well, and he seemed to always just kind of put the puzzle together. And I'd be like, you want me to make that kid a right tackle? I'm like, he's 240 pounds. He's like, in 3 years, he'll be 280. His feet are perfect for the position. Coach him up. And there was just no excuses. Like he really made the sense of urgency as a coach that you are responsible for what happens on that field, and you're the head coach of your position. And he made you feel as though you didn't want to let him down. And I think that when everyone on staff was that way, it sure helped. In terms of play calling, Nick Hallett, who was the offensive coordinator up there, best mind I've ever seen. I've never seen a guy who could sit here and be like, all right, they're going to throw an interception here to this guy, and it's going to be on a post. And I swear to you, once a game, he was right. And I'm like Nostradamus. I was like, how do you – but he just studied the game so well that he knew what the offense was looking for. And so I spent 4 years just as a sponge in his meeting rooms watching him coach his quarterbacks. So, those guys, I mean, I could go on, but I think I've been very fortunate to work, at Carroll College for a while there. That was for small college football. That was like the Alabama of small college sports.
Yeah.
And, I was part of 3 national championships there, and it's nothing I did. I was the young guy learning, but it was awesome to be able to get that experience and see the sense of urgency to do the job day in and day out really is what I took from that place. And then also what the football that you learn from them.
Yeah.
And, as coaches, I take the stuff I did there and we still run some of those things. But then you're like, well, this isn't going to work at the high school level. And you tinker and you do things differently. And as you guys know, man, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's still people running flex offense in Wyoming high school football and winning a lot of games.
Exactly.
So,
Yep.
So.
How about just, getting into the high school game, over you said 15 years, what were your assumptions maybe going into coaching high school kids, and that we all learn so much, I think, every season, but, you talked a little bit about, just this generation and how important it is to communicate on their level. But, is there some other things that, you wish you could go back and tell yourself?
I've worked for amazing ADs. I've done enough, trust me, to probably be fired at every spot I've been at, because you get so frustrated in terms of the effort maybe that is given. One thing you take for granted when you coach college, and most of those guys want to be there, right? Like they're wired
Yeah.
to want to play. I mean, you have to coach more of like, be patient.
Right.
Here at this level, we're yelling at people to run out on the scout team and actually want to give the varsity a look when they don't maybe want to practice that day. And so I think the biggest adjustment for me is just the level of commitment. Like some of these kids are playing just because their buddies are playing, right? Like they're not on scholarship. And I really struggled with that my first few years in Torrington. I mean, thank God Jim English was such a good athletic director, because I probably did enough things to not be wanted around anymore at the beginning. I've gotten better at that over the years. I'm still fiery and intense, but I think I understand a little bit more that the best advice he gave me is, if you've got a kid that's willing to give 70, get him to give 90. And if you got a kid who's willing to give 60, get him to give 80. He goes, at this level, I don't think you're going to get every kid to give 100. You know, and that's
awesome.
Like heart, mind, effort, whatever. They just aren't. So I think you learn to kind of accept some of that for what it is. That's still hard for me, because I was never the most talented guy, so I just tried to pride myself on going as hard as I could all the time. But not every kid is like that. In fact, most aren't.
Right.
So
yeah, and I find, like, with my coaches, we're like, we can admire the problem all we want, or we can continue to find solutions. That sinks in, and there's a level of, where you complain about your own kids or, coaches or whatever, but at the end of the day, the longer that you're doing that, the further you're moving from where you really need to be.
It's true. And like I said, you have who you have. This is not college where you can go recruit players.
Right.
And so find out what they can do well, find out their level of commitment, and then you just try and create something that works for them. Yeah. I mean, you know this, Stu, and I coached my share of basketball. Like, when you got 2 6'5" guys, let's not play 5 out. Right. Let's get in some power sets and pound the ball. When we got a bunch of 6-foot guards, let's get out and run. Oh, we got 9 of them? All right, well, let's press and let's run. You know what I mean? Like, I think just adapt. I think some of the best coaching that goes on is in high school, because we don't get to recruit to a system.
That's true.
We have to fit a system to our kids and what we have on a year in, year out level. So the Wolverines next year will look a lot different.
Totally.
Then, I mean, we'll have 3 solid running backs and a bigger O-line and not as many receivers. We may be in the T once in a while. You know what I mean? And those are things that you just have to adapt to and change. And I think I'm seeing more of that from the high school coaches when the tape I watch. Yeah. Really in all sports, which I think the coaching in Wyoming right now is as good as it's ever been, and which is cool in all sports.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that too. I mean, it's just amazing to me, even looking back at, your past 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, and you're like, man, have I changed too much? But you just adapt to your kids. You have to. Yes. And I think the best coaches do that. But
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I guess maybe just, this is again kind of selfish on my part, but what would you hope to give, younger coaches, just some advice on how to build a program, and maybe some places to start?
Well, first and foremost, I think the biggest thing is that you're not going to change a struggling program overnight. Yeah. And I think that some of the mistakes I made is okay, this new play is going to fix this new defense is going to fix this. Oh yeah. And that's not the truth. The reality is when programs struggle, they struggle for a reason. One, culturally, they're not where they need to be. Well, where can you start with the cultural part of it? Find the people that want to work hard and play them. Yep. Don't worry about the talent level of who's on the field in your first few years. Like, play the people who want to play hard and set that expectation, and don't deviate from that. That's the first and foremost, because the effort piece is really what the players need to be able to control. We tell our guys this all the time. If you don't know your technique, that's on the coaches. If you don't know your assignment, that's on us as coaches. But the effort piece, if you don't do that, that's your fault. You have to control that. So I think that's first and foremost is that there's got to be an expectation of work in terms of what practice looks like, off-season conditioning and training, and you do not deviate from that. I don't care how talented. If the kid is talented and won't fit into what your culture is, in the long run, you compromise that from the jump, you're going to be in trouble.
I learned a lot about that just from Coach Scott again. I mean, and it starts in the summer off-season workouts, the kids that show up or the kids that he ran out there on Friday, and the first couple of years you're looking at the kids that are sitting behind those kids, that good athletes, basketball players or whatever, but they didn't come to, they didn't invest in the team.
Exactly.
They weren't where they needed to be. And it paid off huge.
Yes.
Those kids learned that if they wanted to get on the field, there's just a few things they needed to do, and just show up.
And this, football, it's the weight room. And basketball, listen, if you dribble for 30 minutes a day and shoot for 30 minutes a day, you're going to be just fine. I think that we're in this generation where everyone thinks we need to play AAU and play 50, 60 games. No, man, just that old school, play some because that's the reward.
Yep.
But the grind and the grit and doing the unfun things, that is really what builds your program. Totally. So I don't compromise that. Then two, I think the biggest thing is another thing in football, especially when there's so many moving parts, is a consistency in a coaching staff. Find guys who are going to be willing to be there. Not that they got to be at absolutely everything, but when the same message is being taught for 4 consecutive years, and then you're training new people in the wings, because you know how this is. You're not going to keep the same assistants all the time. They come and go. But I think turnover on a coaching staff is also a huge detriment to building things. And I think that that's really, really important. Find guys. They don't have to be the smartest people in the room.
No.
They just have to be with some of the people who are willing to work the hardest in the room.
Yeah.
Because that behavior is modeled to your players. And then I think more than anything, when you keep looking forward and you're trying to build a program, is don't focus on the results right away. Focus on, I coached some teams in Torrington in those early years where I'm happy we got first downs, and celebrate the successes of what you're doing well and the growth that you're making and stay positive. I've always said this, when a team is struggling and not doing well, people will come to our practices because we've had a lot of success, and they look at me and they're like, geez, Lenhardt is a tyrant out there, and I'm trying to coach against complacency. Because people, it's really easy.
That's the battle.
It's really easy for people to just get comfortable. But when you're coaching a team who is struggling, you would see a different version of me on the field. You would think it would be worse, but it's the confidence that they don't have that you got to try and instill and be positive with them. And so I think that's the big challenge, right, is doing those things. But I think, if I had to answer your question to break it down, find the people who want to work hard and who are willing to put the effort to the standard that you put in place. 2, you keep your coaching staff intact. Not a lot of turnover, so they're hearing the same voices, because there's nothing more frustrating as a learner when you're getting told 2 different things.
Yep.
And then lastly, celebrate the success that you have when you are struggling, and when you are successful,
fight complacency.
I think that's the big key to long-term sustained success.
Yeah, I see that all the time with, youth coaches or whatever, they focus so much on the actual scoreboard, and I'm like, you need to change your scoreboard. You know? It's like, did they use their left hand in the game twice? Did they actually cut once? Let's start there.
Yes.
Before we get ourselves concerned with.
Yeah. Are we setting a screen properly? Did we run that out of bounds play correctly that we've been working for, and we haven't done it right all year?
Yeah. Meet them where they're at.
Yes. And I think we get so focused on who's on the all-star team and who's doing this at the youth league levels, and our parents' competitive nature comes over, and I'm telling you, I see a lot. I laugh at these all-star football things because I'm like, how many of these teams that are playing in this all-star stuff, how many teams are they winning championships when they get to high school?
Yep.
Are we burning them out?
Totally.
Do we play too much?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, where's the emphasis on practice?
Yeah.
You want to know why the European, I'm a Nuggets fan.
Yeah.
I love the Joker.
Yep.
And I love the European players because they practice all week and then they play a game.
5-1.
Yes. Here we want to play.
It's the opposite.
We want to play a million games, but we don't want to practice.
Yep.
And then our players, I'm telling you, I think as early as the next Olympics, I think you could argue Serbia probably should have beat us.
Yep.
And that's a country of 10 million people versus 350 million people, and they had us down and beat.
Right.
If Steph Curry wasn't who he was, we probably lose that game as Americans. And so, what model are we showing our kids? We need to get back to practice.
Right. Well, I mean, just look at the soccer model. You know, we're getting closer, but Trinidad and Tobago are still beating us.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
They just focus on skills. They just work. They just play. They try new things. You know, there's low pressure. Like, you know.
I was down in Belize, and Belize is not a soccer mecca, but it's the most. I was down fishing last year, and I just took some time. Everywhere you go, there's on a golf cart, right? And so I just took some time driving around, enjoying a nice adult beverage, sitting on the beach, and I'm watching over on this grass field. There's these kids playing soccer, barefoot, got nothing, and you got like 16-year-olds playing against like 8-year-olds, and these 16-year-olds are just roughing these kids up, and I'm like, you know what? Those kids are going to be tougher when they're for it. You know what I mean? And we are so like, we can't play this team in the gold division because, you know, we're silver, or, you know, if we play this group, we're not going to beat them. And it's like, whoa. Let's just focus on them getting better and improvement, and I'll understand where the main goal is at the end.
Oh, I know. I am always telling our youth coaches and middle school coaches, you know, I honestly could care less if you win one game. You know, just focus on the things. If they're able to dribble, pass, finish, and shoot by the time they get to me, we're going to make it work.
Exactly.
You know, because maturity, you know, their body types change, you know, like it just is amazing what happens really from their sophomore year to senior year.
Well, and you worry about when you win too much too early, again, complacency.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be having to coach an incoming freshman on effort because they won every game in 8th grade football.
Well, and it goes back to your thing on motivation. Like, if that's what you get excited about, you know, if that's the only thing you get excited about is winning the, you know, bronze division championship, you know, and everybody around that program is where you're at, it's hard to then motivate them to come to the weight room at 6:00 in the morning when you're 4-4. You know, it's just. And
people, it makes me laugh too, Stu, when I look at it and I'm like, how many people, I think you could go look, even since I've been here, whoever's been the best player in middle school is not the best player when they're a senior in high school. I rarely see that happen. One, like you talk about the maturity piece, and two, man, you can see that B team kid and you can see what he's going to become. Like, that's a big, long, rangy kid. He goes hard. He just doesn't have the skills, but he's going to get there. My favorite story to tell is in Rock Springs, Isaac Shainfeld, who plays a lot for the Cowboys right now. He was a B team kid. Wasn't that interested in football. Really liked hockey. He liked hoops. And, you know, you could see what he was going to become. And he just didn't try at that age because he was not into it.
Yeah.
Just keep him out and keep him playing. You don't know what people are going to become. You know what I mean? And that's a big part of it that I just think that we're losing sight of, and let them have some fun. These are kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think as high school coaches, we just want them to be motivated to do it by the time they're a freshman in high school.
Yeah. Yeah. We both have young kids similar age, you know, and you can almost just see I can almost just pick out the kids that it's just not going to happen for.
Yeah.
Just because of parents' emphasis and, what these kids have been told, this whole time. That's just, that's going to change very quickly here soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's that kid waiting in the wings. You're like, he's going to be a player.
Yep.
Just telling you.
He shows up every day. He gets better. He works out on his own. You see him at the court in town, shooting by himself at the park. Like, it's just a matter of time.
He's built to the right stuff. Yeah. No, I get it, man. And I think that's why I like doing this so much, is because I think there's so many coaches out there who, if we could sit down and have a candid conversation, I think we would all be saying the same things.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what sport and that really at what level. That's what's cool about this. And, but I think there's so much good stuff out there. I was watching this, I was at home with my new downtime after the season being over. And I'm scrolling through some stuff on my phone, just kind of downtime. And they got Bo Nix on there, and he's in the weight room working out. And he had talked about, it was something about like the illusion of choice. You know what I mean? And he goes, the Coach Lanning, who's the head football coach at Oregon, says, there's an illusion of choice out there. And in reality, people think they have a lot of choices in sports, but they don't. It's you either work hard, put in the time, or you get left behind, whether you want to do it or not. And I think that the biggest lesson that sports is teaching these kids is so much of your life is doing what you don't want to do, right?
It's so true.
So much of your life is the reason that hunting and fishing is so fun, I tell our players, is because you don't get to do it very much. Mm-hmm. The reason that going and playing golf is fun is because you don't get to do it very much. If you did it all the time, it wouldn't be that much fun anymore.
Yep.
But you spend so much of your time doing what you don't want to do, and then doing what you don't want to do with the right attitude and the right effort determines your success.
Right.
And I think that that's a big part of it, because huge part of it. I mean, we coach a game till late in the night. We turn around and have to basically run the mini Ron-thon for middle school, 19 teams here. My job as a middle school AD is to put that tournament on. I'll be honest, man, that was not high on my list of wanting to do, but it's important for me to represent Riverton Middle School and put a good tournament on for those kids, because that is their big event.
Right.
And so, you've got to put your best foot forward when you don't want to do it. And I think that's the hard part is,
right,
not everything has to be fun.
Yep. Yeah, we talk about that all the time. And I think it's just like moving in the direction of the things that you value. We talk about two sides of the same coin, right? Mm-hmm. On one side of the coin are all the things that you love doing, showing up on Friday night, in front of, the fans and under the lights and winning games, competing with your buddies, road trips, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But the other side of the coin is all the crap, everything that goes along with it, and all of the work that comes with it, and the self-doubt and the people that talk about you. And so you're going to have to, you have to move through those things in order to get to the things that you want. Mm-hmm. But, I always ask our kids, like, would you have it any other way?
Yeah.
You could easily run away from those things.
Yeah.
And you think your life's going to become a little bit easier, but it's not. If you want to move in the direction of the values that you have and the things that give you joy, you're going to have to go through the crap. So it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, we read a book with our team last year called Pound the Stone.
And
it's a book about basically just about grit, and then we read one this year called The Twin Thieves. And really the number one thing that cripples most people, but what cripples young people more than anything in this social media age, is this insane fear of failure. Mm-hmm. When the fear of failure is not really, like, if I'm out, Stu, and you and I are shooting hoops, like you and I are playing horse, for example, and you beat me, I'm not going to be that upset about it, right? Like, it's not that big of a deal. But what comes from with this generation is also this fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. And that fear of failure stems from a fear of judgment of what everybody else thinks about your failures. They post about it on social media. These kids have this nonsensical barstool accounts where they rag on each other, and it's probably people who aren't even playing.
Yeah.
But I think our kids, we wonder why participation levels are down. I don't think kids are lazier than they've been. I think this insane fear of failure of what everybody else thinks of them is really what cripples them.
It's true.
And I think it's stuff that we, guys like us who don't spend all our days on our phone, don't really fully even comprehend.
Yeah.
I think it would be wise for coaching to have a young coach on staff who really understands the whole, Snapchat, Instagram, like those people that work at those companies. Everyone thinks they're a bunch of tech guys. They're actually psychology majors.
Yeah, behavior analysts.
Yeah, because they know how it affects people. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's another huge battle we face is like, look, coaching against this fear of failure, which indirectly is a fear of judgment from other people. And I have to check myself. I think as coaches, when we lose games, we're like, what are the parents going to say about me? What is someone going to say to my wife on social media? What do people think of me?
I know.
And I think that that's a battle that we all have to fight because this social media thing has changed our profession.
And guys like you and I think I tell this to young coaches in our program all the time, young head coaches that, you and I had the benefit of maybe some trust, that we've built these programs, we've had success, and then I think just time, you become a little bit more thick-skinned.
Yes.
Everybody around you, your wife, everybody kind of understands the deal. But for these young coaches now, that just get eaten alive, they're so optimistic, they're so idealistic about what they're going into. And all of the sport stuff is great. That's like this much of what it encompasses. And so it's getting worse, that's for sure, in that regard.
And I worry about our young coaches that way and I worry about the lack of patience that we give them and the grace we give them. I don't know all the details of what happened up in Campbell County, but I know Coach Garst is a young coach, and he probably made some mistakes, but I don't like seeing that because I think we got to give people some grace to be able to figure it out. And I can't really speak to much there. Maybe it was warranted, maybe it wasn't. But I'm more speaking.
We don't know the whole picture.
I'm more speaking that I just don't like seeing, people fired and young coaches, not in the system anymore because of a mistake maybe they made. I think that we got to give these young coaches some room to learn, because if not, I think what we're seeing, you don't see it as much in basketball but in football, man, the same teams are playing for the championship every single year, within reason of a few here or there. I think the last 3A team from the East was when I was in Torrington that played for a championship. So I would like to see, you've got like Cody and Star Valley and McKay and Matt are terrific coaches, and they've built these programs. But I think it would be best for football if we could get a little more parity across the board. Well, how are we going to get that? We got to get some coaches in these programs that can mentor some young people to build them up and get them ready to roll. And I think that we've got to just be better about training up our young coaches, and it's harder than it's ever been because if people are going to rain down on these guys for losing trust me, I started my career 1-15 or 2-15 or whatever, and if people wouldn't have given me time to figure it out, it was never that I didn't know football.
Right.
I just didn't know how to coach high school kids. We got to give these people some time to figure it out and give them some grace and teach them. And that's where a good AD comes in. That's where, good mentor coaches. And that's why I love like this podcast, right? If I can, and you and I can give some of these young coaches something to hold on to from this, then I think that's a good thing, right? Because at the end of the day, we play each other, Stu. If I play you, I want to win. You play me, you want to win. But at the end of the day, what's our main job? we're trying to develop young men and and that goes with our coaches too, because this being in education, there are parts of the educational world with the system, the way it's set up. We do not let our young people fail very much, and they need to learn to fail. And that's what sports is great is because there's still a winner and a loser every Friday, Saturday night, or whenever you're playing. We've got to let them fail, because that's when you hit your greatest growth, is when you fail. Yeah. And in the classroom, we're not letting people fail anymore.
Exactly. So. Well, I really appreciate that. This has been awesome. We could probably talk for 3 hours, but we gotta wrap this up. So, would you mind, talking a little bit about the 3A championship, and if you feel compelled, also maybe your quick take on what you see in the 4A championship?
Yeah, no, I'll start with the 3A. I expect it to be a great game. I know that Star Valley's the favorite, right? But I think what you're going to see with Cody is a group of kids who are going to play loose, similar to the way our kids played last week. Everyone's counting them out. No one thinks they can beat them. And I think that the real key to the game is simply going to be this. Star Valley defensively is really, really good. I think that if Cody can string some first downs together and even punt and make Star Valley go the length of the field, I think that back and forth can keep it competitive. If I'm Cody, I'm just trying to get it to the second half where it's still a ball game within one score, and then you've got your chances where anything can happen.
Yeah.
I think Cody's front is a little bit underrated. I think that when people came and looked into the season, they said, oh, Cody lost a lot. And I'm like, Cody's going to be just fine. As they brought back 3 all-state O-linemen from a team that was really, really good. I think that they'll be up to the task. And if you've watched Star Valley play a little bit over they've been hitting people with home runs. I think if you can make them go 10, 12 plays, there's a chance there could be a penalty. There's a chance there could be a mistake.
They were super sloppy last week.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've been beating people so easily, at some point, you wonder how that's going to be when they get into a real dogfight. Mm-hmm. One thing that Star Valley has going for them is they played a very close game with Cody. So I think in their minds, they're like, this team could beat us. Yeah. So,
won't take them lightly.
I think Star Valley's the favorite, but I think it's a game that's going to be worth watching because Cody just has enough scrap and grit, and Matt's a really good coach, and so are McKay. I mean, they do a heck of a job. But if I'm Cody, their tempo is their great neutralizer. Mm-hmm. But in this game, Star Valley has the bodies to throw at them. Mm-hmm. They can play depth game.
That was crazy.
If I'm Cody, I slow this thing down and I try and turn this in a basketball game. I try and play this in the 30s and 40s basketball type game and give yourself a chance late. I don't know what Coach McFadden's planning to do, but I think I know he'll have a good plan. He's a great coach. And I know McKay will as well. So those are two good coaches and two good friends. So I anticipate it being a one-score game. Nice. I really do. And, a lot of people maybe will disagree with me there, but I think that Cody's ability it's hard being the favorite, and Cody's ability to play loose and free, where last week maybe they didn't feel that. I wouldn't be shocked if it's a 7 to 10 point game. Yeah. I give the edge to Valley, but I think that it'll be a better game than people think.
All right.
The 4A game, I haven't seen as much of it as possible, but I've seen Sheridan enough to know this. I've never seen a team in state championship games who win games with their special teams like they do. They returned a kickoff against us in 22 for a touchdown. We squibbed it, and somehow the kid picked it up almost from one knee, hands it off to a guy. I mean, it's coming, but I think that the difference in that game, I think it'll be a tight game, but I think Sheridan will get them by a couple touchdowns. I think the special teams and their ability to do what they do on that side of the ball is just incredible.
I was amazed. I watched Sheridan last week, really for the first time. I was just amazed at their ability to tackle.
Yes.
I mean, that just jumped out at me. Like, you go down or you're getting driven backwards. One-on-one space. I mean, their technique is unbelievable.
I agree with you. And everybody's like, what's the key to Sheridan's success? They do the little things better than everybody else. Like, people want to make it out to be like this mind-blowing thing, but they block and I tell everybody they block and tackle better than everybody else. And it's incredible. I saw the same things. And one thing is
because I was impressed with Central. I mean, they did a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, no. And I always felt like when we played against them, we could move the ball. You could come up with something new, and you're going to hit them on it once, but you're not going to get them on it twice. They don't continuously get beat by the same scheme over and over again. They adjust. Their kids adjust on the field. So I think if you're ever going to beat Sheridan, I think the biggest thing you've got to do is somehow, some way, you got to create some turnovers. And then when you get the short field, you got to find a way to score. In our game the other night against Cody, when we're up 14-13, we get them turned over, and then we don't score. I told our coaches on the headset, this is going to be tough. Because when a good team gives you a gift, which they rarely give you, you have to take advantage of that. And I think that's the only way that Campbell County will have a chance is as if they can get some turnovers and then take advantage of those on short fields. Because, like you said, Sheridan's tackling, their kicking game, their ability to do all the little things right is what makes them what they are. And year in and year out. Like you said, what you said, Stu, I've had people tell me that now for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team tackle like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they do a great job of just doing the little things right.
It's pretty impressive. Campbell County, they were in the depths there when they split the two schools, and 2 back-to-back losing seasons, and 0 for, I think, on both of those seasons, and totally turned it around. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I've heard like a lot of the good talent in Gillette is still going to Twin Spruce, which I believe is the feeder school for Campbell County.
Okay.
And so, it's kind of, there's some people there who only knew Campbell County, and
will always be Campbell County.
Yeah, that's just who they are, right? Like, no matter that there's a new school and newer facilities and all that, that's just what their family is. And I think the Droobs, with Mason Droobs staying there, I think that had he gone to Thunder, who knows what would have happened.
Sure.
But I think for those Camels fans, him staying, I think you can say that he helped stem the tide to even things out. It's wild to see how that happened in Gillette and how it's really evened out.
Yes.
And then in Cheyenne, when they split, they've never been able to
the pecking order
get south to stay that way. I mean, which, this being a basketball coach, you got to give Jim Schaefer a ton of credit for what he did there at South. You know what I mean?
That's an understatement.
You know what I mean? He did a hell of a job. So.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, Coach, for hopping on in the middle of the week. I know you're busy, and we'll have to have you on again for sure.
It's a blast, man. I love doing this. I could do this. I think in my second life, I'd like to be a country music singer or a podcaster. So
well, good.
It'd be good. So
awesome. Well, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Appreciate it.